All right, let's kick things off. Today we're going to dive into this Super Soco TC Max e-motorcycle. Everyone's talking about it, and is it really as good as they say? We've got this in-depth review we're going to look
Mm.
at, and yeah, it's got everything, like the specs and, what riders are actually saying.
You know what's really cool about this review is it goes into the questions you'd really have, like, is this thing good for a new rider?
Hmm.
What are the downsides? And even how it compares to, like, the other electric motorcycles out there.
Okay, so let's start with like why this bike is so appealing,
Mhm.
especially for someone who's new to motorcycles. The review talks about how light it is, only 110 kilograms.
Hmm.
And that's got to be great for handling, especially if you're not used to like heavier bikes.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It helps new riders feel confident.
Right.
Like, being comfortable handling the bike is so important, and that lighter weight makes a huge difference, especially at slower speeds.
And the review also mentions like how easy the interface is. You get this nice LCD for speed and battery life, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
You don't have to like figure out some crazy dashboard.
Yeah, it seems like they really wanted to make it, like, simple and easy to use. Which is smart. A simple interface can really make a difference for someone who's new to writing. Plus, you get that modern minimalist design with customizable colors. I mean, it's pretty cool looking.
Speaking of cool, let's talk performance.
Yeah.
The TC Max has a top speed of 95 kilometers per hour, which is like, what, 59 miles per hour?
Yeah,
Not going to break any records or anything. But the review says it's plenty for riding around the city.
exactly. That seems to be what this bike is made for. City riding, it's all about navigating traffic stop and goes, you're not really trying to go that fast. The review even says that the performance is, like, perfect for that quick acceleration you need in city traffic because of the instant torque from that electric motor.
Okay, now I know some people might not know how electric motors work. Can you explain like what instant torque actually means when you're riding?
Sure thing. So, like, unlike a gas engine, which has to, like, rev up to build power, electric motors have all their torque right away. So when you hit the throttle on the TC Max, you get this immediate burst of power. It makes it super responsive and fun to ride, especially when you're in traffic.
No more getting left behind at the light. Haha. The review also mentions the range 140 kilometers, which is about 87 miles on a single charge. That might not sound like a lot, but the review says it's actually plenty for most daily commutes. They even say you could maybe commute a whole week without charging, depending on how far you go, of course.
Yeah, and I like how they relate the range back to something practical.
Yeah.
Like, instead of just giving you a number, they're showing you how this bike could fit into your life.
Now we got to talk about the thing everyone thinks about with electric vehicles. The battery and charging. The review really goes into this. What did you find interesting?
Well, the removable battery really stood out to me. It's only 18 kilograms, about 40 pounds, and you can just pop it out and take it inside to charge. You don't need a special charger in your garage or anything.
Oh, wow, that's super convenient, especially if you live in an apartment or don't have a garage.
Yeah, totally. It takes away that worry about charging that a lot of people have with electric vehicles.
It does take like 5 to 6 hours to fully charge, though, right? No
Yeah,
fast charging.
right. But the review says that the removable battery actually makes that long charging time not such a big deal. You can just swap it out with the charged one if you need to go somewhere quickly or just charge it overnight. Plus, they say the battery's supposed to last for like 800 to 1,000 charges. So it should be good for a few years.
Okay, that's good to know, especially since replacing a battery can be expensive.
Yeah.
So we've got this lightweight, easy to use bike, decent range for the city, good interface, and a battery that's easy to deal with. But no bike's perfect, right?
What are some of the things the review mentions that aren't so great?
Well, like we said, the range might not be the best if you want to go on longer trips. 87 miles is fine for commuting, but it's not going to cut it for a road trip. Yeah, you got to keep that in mind. And the review also says the charging time could be a drawback. I mean, 5 to 6 hours isn't bad, especially with the removable battery, but it's still way longer than filling up a gas tank.
That's true. And they also point out that the TC Max isn't really made for highways or rough terrain. The suspension and the top speed are all about city riding.
Right, it's all about choosing the right tool for the job. And from what we've talked about, it seems like this bike is really good for what it's made for.
Definitely. The review sums it up pretty well. This bike's perfect for, like, beginners, people who commute in the city, people who want something eco-friendly, and of course people who don't want to spend a ton of money.
So it's like they designed this bike for a very specific kind of rider, and they did a good job.
Yeah, for sure. But, we've talked a lot about the specs and all that. What does the review say about what it's like to actually ride? I think that's the most interesting part.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yeah, so the review says the riding experience is amazing. especially in the city. They talk about how it feels so zippy and responsive in traffic.
So it's not just like practical and eco-friendly, it's actually fun to ride.
Exactly. And they say the handling is really good too, like responsive and agile, which is perfect for those crowded city streets.
Oh, that's cool. Did they mention anything about the design and like the build quality, beyond just how it looks?
Yeah, they do. They talk about how it has this really strong steel frame, so it's durable, but not too heavy.
Nice. So they didn't like cheap out on the build, even though it's more affordable?
Nope. It sounds like they used good quality components and paid attention to the details. They even mention the LED lights, like the headlight and taillight. Not only do they look cool, but they also help with visibility.
So it's like they really tried to make a quality bike without making it super expensive.
Yeah, exactly. The review actually compares the fit and finish to some of the more expensive models out there.
Wow, that's impressive. All this is making me want to try this bike out myself.
I know, right? It seems like they really got the balance right with this bike. It's practical, stylish, fun to ride, and it doesn't break the bank.
Okay, so we've covered the features, the good and the bad, the riding experience, even the build quality. But there's one big question we haven't answered yet. How does the Super Soco TC Max compare to its rivals?
That's the real test. The review mentions a few competitors, and it's important to see how the TC Max stacks up against them.
Yeah, let's get into that. I'm really curious to see how it compares to the other bikes out there. All right, so it's time for the showdown. How does this TC Max stack up against the other e-motorcycles out there?
Yeah, it's like we've been looking at all the details, and now it's time to see how it performs in the real world.
Right. The review mentioned a few competitors like the Zero FXE, the Sondor's Metacycle, and the K-Calc OR. Those are some pretty serious players, each with their own strengths.
Yeah, like the Zero FXE, it's known for being really high tech. It's got all these different riding modes, and you can connect it to your phone. It also has a longer range and a higher top speed than the TC Max. But of course, all that comes with a higher price tag. It's almost twice as much as the TC Max.
So you're paying for that extra performance and all the fancy features. What about the Sondor's Metacycle? I've been hearing a lot about that one lately.
The Metacycle is interesting for sure. It's got this really cool futuristic design and some unique features like a swappable battery system. The range and top speed are pretty similar to the TC Max, but it's still a bit more expensive, and some reviewers have said that the handling and the build quality aren't as good.
Interesting. And then there's the K-Calc OR. That one seems like it's for a very specific type of rider.
Yeah, the Calco R is more for off-road riding and adventure touring. It's got that rugged build with the big tires and higher ground clearance. But it's also a lot more expensive than the TC Max, and the range is much shorter.
Which makes sense if you're going off-road, I guess. So it seems like the Super Soco TC Max can hold its own against the competition, especially when you consider the price. It's not trying to be the best at everything, is it?
Nope. It seems like they're focusing on a specific type of rider, and they're doing a really good job.
Okay, so let's recap everything we've talked about. We started with how beginner-friendly the TC Max is, with that simple interface and the lightweight design. Then we talked about how well it performs in the city, that quick acceleration, and the decent range for commuting.
Right. And we also went over the battery and charging situation, how convenient that removable battery is, and how long it's supposed to last. And we were honest about the downsides too, the limited range, the longer charging time compared to gas bikes, and the fact that it's not made for highways or rough terrain.
And then we just looked at how it compares to the other e-motorcycles on the market. It's clear that the TC Max isn't the most powerful or high-tech bike out there,
Yeah,
but it seems like it's a really solid option in its category.
absolutely. It's a good choice for a lot of people, especially those who are new to electric motorcycles or just looking for a practical and stylish way to get around the city.
So after all this, what do you think about the Super Soco TC Max? Does it live up to the hype?
You know what I think it does? Based on this review, it seems like it's a well-designed, well-made, and surprisingly affordable e-motorcycle. It's not for everyone, of course, but for the right person, it's a great option.
Well said. I think we've given our listeners a pretty good idea of what the Super Soco TC Max is all about. And it makes you think, with all these electric vehicles popping up, it's interesting to see how companies are approaching the motorcycle market.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time, and I can't wait to see how these bikes keep evolving in the future.
Who knows, maybe in a few years we'll be doing a deep dive on some crazy new e-motorcycles that we can't even imagine right now. But for now, if you want to learn more about the Super Soco TC Max, we definitely recommend checking out the full review online. It's got even more details and specs than we could cover here.
And as always, do your own research and think about what you need from a motorcycle before you make a decision.
That's right. But until next time, thanks for joining us on this electrifying journey into the world of the Super Soco TC Max.